And what's nice with disappointment is it's this moment of being like, oh, they are going to be an unsatisfying source of getting my needs met. I'm going to look elsewhere, right? Because anger is, how could she? This is bullshit. And sadness is, I lost the thing that mattered most. I'm ruined. And disappointment is like, boy, that was a dud. Well, if I'm going to keep having needs, I guess I will keep looking for them, right? She's a dead end of getting them met. I have to move on.
Welcome to Forged in Silence podcast, addressing issues men face but rarely talk about. Tonight, we have Matthew Lowe joining us, a guy we met when I started venturing out on this whole topic between emotional intelligence and relationships and how they all affect each other. So I'm really excited to bring Matthew on the show to have a pretty awesome conversation. But before we get started, Matthew, how are you really?
Generally good, I would say. I'm in a weird spot right now because in the last several weeks I've started doing a lot of writing after a year of kind of just like taking a break after the book was published. And sort of the good and bad news for me in writing is that it's very exciting. I've got like type 2 bipolar. So for me, like excitement can mean like, oh, I'm not sleeping as much. I'm a little like edgy, but I'm also having a lot of fun. So I have to like find the right way to kind of like enjoy myself without sort of going too hard. So I'm finding that balance, and it's super fun to be writing again. So yeah.
Awesome.
Robbie, how are you really?
I am doing good. It's a new year. Happy New Year, everyone. A little time off that we took. We're back. I've set some pretty big goals for myself this year. So far, this first week has been going well. Up is up. So we'll see when it comes down a little bit. But so far, I'm doing good. Steve, how are you really?
Well, first, I want to say Happy New Year to everyone. That's. I hope everyone had a good and safe and happy holiday. As for me here, how am I really? I am doing actually really, really good. I've been in a phenomenal mood for a good chunk of the week. Did a 72-hour water fast Monday through Wednesday. And I swear it has been a part of my elevated mood. I'm also maintaining the ketosis that came along with doing the water fast just because I have an elevated mood. I've been in a pretty damn fabulous mood since Thursday. I put in a little bit of food back in my system. And I got outside today, got a bunch of sun, and really needed that. But really, I'm in a great mood. I'm in a great spot. Robbie, you talked about having some pretty lofty goals. I I haven't set any goals for New Year's when it comes around. What I do is set an intention. So I pick a word for the year. It's another popular thing people do. And then I write a reflection about what that word means to me and how I'm going to apply it to the year ahead. And so my word for this year is elevate.
Well, you're on theme.
Yeah. I have lofty expectations of myself. I hold myself to a pretty high standard, and that's not going to go away. So, but a phenomenal mood, great mood. And I'm really happy to bring Matthew along on here. So Matthew, you are the author of Seeing the Forest for the Trees, which is
Seeing the forest and I'm gonna
seeing,
flash.
there you go. Do that. Seeing the Forest and the Trees. Correct. I wrote it down wrong.
You're
Anyways,
good.
I'm glad you brought the book there along with you. When we sent you the message to, us to meet each other, bring you on here, you sent me just what was it? The
Table of contents.
table of contents. Yeah. And so I'm going to rope in the first chapter of this to the first question we're going to have to talk about, because we're going to talk about this emotional intelligence. And that's something I've still been stuck on since you and I had this conversation earlier. But when it comes to relationships and emotional intelligence, the first chapter of your book is your words shape your reality. That's also something that I noticed in my life. And I want to ask you this first question as we dive into this topic is, do your words shape your relationships?
Yes. I mean, 100%. I realize there's somebody somebody I've been working with who I'm guessing I'm going to be throwing under the bus a bit here. I just won't use any details. Um, actually, there's probably I have a few different people right now. I'll go out with it. They are men who are clearly struggling with their spouses. And, if they are my client, I want them to feel like I am there for them and I am compassionate for them. But I've been giving them a lot of shit. One of them was definitely frustrated with his wife the other night, and I called her a bitch, which is really not going to get you very far when you're having a fight. And he knew that it wasn't the right move. But I mean, what we really had to work on was why is that even the word that came to his mind? Right? How is he thinking about his partner, and how is he thinking about women, that when he's struggling with this particular person, that's what he comes out with? So even just that, it might be sort of a too simple example.
No.
I can give you a more complex one.
You can go ahead and give us a more complex one too, but that simple example right there is exactly what I'm talking about, and how you can combine the two things, the emotional intelligence and how your words affect the relationship, right? Because he's clearly, that's the lens he's seeing that disagreement through.
Yeah, right, exactly. And seeing his relationship, so I'll kind of give you a broader one. So my obsession these days is with a phrase called holding the tension. I did not invent it, but I'm going to do my best to popularize it. So let's see, what's my elevator pitch? Holding the tension in communication is, let's say I'm going to do it sort of in a dumb way. Let's say that this is I think we're all of enough age that we remember sort of great taste, less filling. Does this right? So if you'll recall, the two sides are just yelling back and forth, great taste, less filling. Right. And what's happening is there's clearly a tension between taste and fillingness. And instead of holding it, because if somebody just said, hey, you know what? Great taste and less filling, the other side then doesn't have any sort of comeback because their position has already been stated. Right. So much there. If my words show that, I'm going to hold my side, but I'm going to show them that I understand theirs, the argument gets a lot, let's just say, more efficient. Right? Because otherwise, if I just keep saying my part and they keep saying their part, all we're doing is looping back and forth. Right? So if my words can contain the relationship does a lot better.
I'm thinking, let me use my words here. And we're talking about words. What about, so I know in relationships, we want to attack each other sometimes, and men and women both do the same thing. And we use these words to attack each other. Excuse me. Usually there's something else going on, right? But they want to get, I want to say, a rise or maybe end the conversation by using such word, because then it blows up. The other person has to walk away and be silent or need some time to reflect, all these things. When, you're talking about using these words, or with men that you work with, I know when I've had relationships and I use those words, there's something greater deep down inside. How do you get them to see, or what they're feeling, out in a word that's their emotions, or a better way to conversate, instead of saying, instead of you're a bitch, you're acting like a bitch, and this is how I feel why you're acting like a bitch, or you're doing this and this is why I feel, or you hurt me, or we could go all over the place. But how do you work those in there?
It's a good question. I mean, in general, I'm going to be counseling men that misogynist language is not going to improve their relationship. Right. So even just that alone is a big start, right? If we sort of kind of keep scaling down from there, right? Name calling in general isn't going to get you very far either. I mean, I think what you're pointing at is very real, right? That if somebody's on the attack, that generally means that they are feeling threatened in some way. People don't attack unless they feel like they need to, because they feel like they are being attacked in some way. And people are only going to have that defensiveness if there's some sort of vulnerable feeling that there's almost this attitude of how dare you make me feel this way? Right. And to be able to get to that I guess often what I'm trying to do with my clients, at least ones who have that kind of attitude, the sort of how dare you make me feel some kind of way attitude, is actually bring a little humility into the relationship of, what, being with other people is going to make you feel a little less than. You are not just one person. You are now part of this whole. And in that way, it makes you half. And to work with that, to recognize that in order to have a healthy relationship, it involves a bit of giving up of personal power, right? Ideally, you have a partner where you feel empowered and they do too, but that means we are going to trade off in that way, right? And so often, I think with name calling or just aggression, it's like, I need to be winning this right now.
Right. I need to be right. That feeling of that you it's almost an attempt to end it
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
by being victorious in the argument,
Yeah. And the real issue
right?
there is if you win the argument against your spouse, bad news, you are still married to the loser of that argument who is not going
I
to
like that.
be that into it, right? You still have to
It's
live
a
with
good
this
point.
person who you
That's a
just
very good
beat,
point.
you
I
know?
love the way you just put that. Oh, and by the way, the person who just lost that argument has a ring on their finger, or even if they don't, like you're still sleeping in the same bed, or
Yeah.
Right.
hopefully,
In the same house.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now you're
So,
eating dinner with the loser of the argument,
right.
which I
Right.
mean, or she's eating dinner with you and you're the loser of the argument. Like no one wins there,
No,
is what
no
you're
one
trying to
wins.
say.
Right. If you win, you've created resentment. If you win in a way that is, hostile, you're
Yeah.
creating a resentful relationship. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, me and my partner will have an argument, and at the end of it, one of us be like, huh, you know what? Okay, I think you're right on this one. But at least we've come there in a way where we're friends at the end of it. She won or I won, but we're not like being dicks to each other.
I have a second part of this question that I was thinking of too when I asked the first part of the question. When we say these words to ourselves during this, because you could be in your head trying to still win, right? And you're saying to
Mm,
yourself, she is such a bitch.
mhm,
To
mhm,
yourself, it's the same thing, right? I'm projecting
mhm.
that through my mind to this
Yeah,
person,
yeah,
but I'm not
yeah.
saying it out loud.
Yes.
How does that work? How does that affect, I wouldn't say the relationship, but the thinking behind changing the language?
Yeah, I mean it's enormous because usually, especially if things are heated, the words that are coming to mind are going to be the next words that come out.
Mhm.
It's that alone. The words are key. I do think that there are kind of these framing concepts that I mean, I think if we have those frames, that itself is still sort of vocab, right? I call myself like a cognitive linguistic therapist. Right. To me, it's sort of the ideas and words that we're playing with are kind of all we have to work with when we are then behaving in the world. Right. So this attitude of this person, here are the names I want to call them, it has to still be founded on we are having a difficulty and it is their fault, right? Even just that alone
Yeah, yeah.
is going to, like, I'm not going to be name calling unless I think they're the problem. And why are you like bothering me? I'm great. So I think just that is going to be where the name calling starts. So even if I use less loaded language, but I'm still sort of throwing words at them, if I say, you're being very difficult right now, I mean, it's certainly less offensive, but I'm still not, there's no tension holding there, right? If they're being difficult, I might be participating in that in some way. Yeah.
And
Sorry, what do you want to say?
I was going to say also, I just keep having these thoughts. This is a fascinating conversation, actually, thinking about words. What about when they don't have enough of a vocabulary to talk about their emotions or how they're feeling or what they're trying to convey to this other person's spouse? We can use it all over the place, coworkers.
It was interesting, Robbie, because I have a similar question written down right here. But so I want to, Matthew, go
Please.
ahead and answer that. And I think we could probably just piggyback off of it.
Yeah, it's a real problem if we don't have enough word. Are you familiar? So one of my favorite words is alexithymia. You know that one?
No.
No.
Is that Alexa? Alexa, the Amazon thing? Like you ask her
No,
everything?
Alexa. If there was a chat function, Alexithymia. Alexithymia. So if
Okay.
we parse it, A
Okay, I got it.
meaning like not, Lexa meaning word, and thymia meaning emotion, is when someone is
Okay.
having a feeling and they just lack the vocabulary to be able to say what it is. Right. So the most classic version of this, right? So men are very often alexithymic because we're not taught that much about emotions. So usually what they can identify is sort of like happy and angry. Right. So if they are sad, if they're experiencing a loss, but they don't really understand, if they can't recognize loss or sadness, then they just get angry instead. Right. Somebody who doesn't have,
It reverts to the whatever emotion you know how to access
yeah,
easiest
100%. Yeah. I
in
mean, if
in that moment.
for what it's worth, also, right? If I'm, sadness and fear are both uncomfortable feelings. And so it's, okay, this is making me uncomfortable. Well, anger also, anger is a feeling we get when we're comfortable as well. So it has a certain meaning to it. But then it's a real problem. Yeah. Steve, you had a similar question before I keep rambling.
Keep rambling.
You can keep rambling all you want. This
All
is
right.
this
Okay.
is it's fantastic. Like
Cool. Cool.
if you have a high horse you want to stand on, go ahead and find a
All right.
spot to stand on your
Three,
high horse too,
three.
and like preach, man. Preach.
All right.
It's
Just
I'll do it.
We're okay with it. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
the thought that went through my mind was, how does a man go about increasing his emotional intelligence? So when it comes to that, and that's why I said this kind of piggybacks on what Robbie was talking about. You're talking about disagreement. You're talking
Yeah.
about access to emotion now. You know what I mean? And so I know kind of what I did to try and put language to that. And that wasn't through therapy, or it was through reading a certain book. And I swear by it. But that being said, from like a professional opinion, you're dealing with a man who basically right now lives in happy, sad, and mad, and those are the three emotions that
Yep.
he really knows how to voice. So those are the ones that you're accessing regardless of what you're missing in between.
Yeah.
How do you go about giving someone the language to access everything in between?
Sure. I got that one. So, I appreciate too, because it's an easier question if it's how do I give this to them rather than like what would I recommend they do sort of outside of session. So really, and I'll be clear too, there's no way what I'm about to say is original. I'm guessing it's been a while since I've read Nonviolent Communication. I believe that's Marshall Rosenberg. Fantastic book. Very sort of basic. I'm not saying it's perfect, but there's a lot there that I think is foundational. So I think I'm pulling from him, where he talks about sort of any emotion is a response to, or it's information and it's motivation in regards to a need, right? Any emotion is always telling us something about the state of our needs, or at least how we're interpreting the state of our needs. So I would really start there with a guy, because that can be really orienting, right? Your needs are met, so you are happy. Your needs are, so when they're not being met, it goes a few different ways. So they're not being met because someone's in the way. So that's going to be anger.
yeah.
They are being met, but they're being threatened. So that's fear. And they were being met, but the resource, right, the source of what was getting them met is lost, and that's going to be sadness. So really just, I mean, there's obviously more emotions than that. I will often, like, if you Google like images like emotion wheel, you can find these
Emotion wheels,
massive charts just filled with, and that's fun. Just I learned the phrase emotional granularity, which is such a good phrase of having the particular word that you're looking for. Right. So angry versus frustrated versus
Frustration,
annoyed. Yeah. So usually like teaching them about to identify, to understand that what they're always responding to is something about the state of their needs is always a really important part. And then usually along with that, because let's recognize emotional intelligence, half of it is knowing what you're feeling, half of it is being aware that other people also have feelings. Right. So there's this person, they're your enemy or you're angry at them, but also they are a human with needs. And to sort of own that having needs makes us vulnerable, right? For what it's worth, right? If I did not eat
I think that's an
need,
excellent thing to talk about, just in that
right,
in and of itself, because
right,
trying to communicate a need to someone first, if that's not something you're used to doing, you already
yeah,
have a hard time finding the
yeah,
words to communicate that. And then next, would you like you spoke about fear, the fear of communicating the need and then having that rejected, or
yeah, oh, yeah, Yep.
it was already being met and you're being thankful for it, and then you've made them aware that they were meeting a need for you, and then they're like, "Oh shit, I don't want to do that anymore." So then you have it removed from you.
Yeah.
Um, it
Yeah.
like you've already described this in a
Mm,
very simple way, but
mm,
I just put a little bit of context to it. But
yes.
anyways, take that one.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's right. To both have needs makes us vulnerable. To communicate about them is even more of a vulnerable feeling. So just there, and I think that's another big part. Again, I would say that this happens sort of across genders, but definitely my male clients are going to struggle with this, where they
Hmm.
just don't want to feel weak. And
Hmm.
I get sort of aggressive with clients. I create like a really like caring relationship. Anytime I'm giving my clients shit, it's because I know they feel safe with me and they know whatever I'm doing like comes out of that. I'm not mean, but I'm very direct. I'm like, hey, you are human. If you're not a divine being, then like you have fucking weaknesses. Like, can we just own it? Because otherwise, you're refusing to be human, and like I lose patience for it. Right? Any client, I guess, sort of across genders, perfectionism is what I'll see the most. And I'm like, yeah, guess what? Like, you will die. No matter how good you do, like, you will keep being human. Can we just start from there? And sometimes that works. I mean, usually I have to sort of hammer it home because they keep refusing. They'll sort of know it cognitively, but they'll refuse it emotionally. And I just kind of won't quit.
You kind
I
of have
wanted to,
to go ahead. No, just go.
uh, well, I was going to riff just on something else, just because it's been an interesting thing I've been noticing. And I think I have it in the book. There's a chapter about getting over a breakup by being disappointed. And so the way I'll often talk about it, right? Because what's really tricky with a breakup, let's say that this works. Look, I'm married very happily, but I also was divorced. I was divorced happily. I guess I was married unhappily at the time. And in the sort of aftermath of it, it was very confusing because I felt sort of sad and angry at the same time.
Hmm.
Right. And I was sad about losing this person who is so close to me while also blaming them for that loss. And it made sense, right? Like, boy, if she just was the person I'd been looking for, then I would still have. But even that's very confusing. And what's nice with disappointment is it's this moment of being like, oh, they are going to be an unsatisfying source of getting my needs met. I'm going to look elsewhere, right? Because anger is, how could she? This is bullshit. And sadness is, I lost the thing that mattered most. I'm ruined. Disappointment is like, boy, that was a dud. Well, if I'm gonna keep having needs, I guess I will keep looking for them. Right? She's a dead end of getting them met. I have to move on.
I had this light bulb moment the other day, and I was thinking about some shadow work stuff, and I was listening to this person talk about shadow work, and they were talking about a lot of times when they talk about it, they go back to our inner child, and that's where it starts. But this person was like, it can be in adulthood too, so don't think that everything goes back to. Then I was like, oh shit! When my ex-wife left me, she abandoned me. I have abandonment
Mm,
issues from my dad.
mhm,
I was like, then I was like, what was I feeling when she abandoned me? I was sad. I was angry because she took the love of my life, my daughter, out of my life. And then I became the victim. Why could this
mm,
person do this to me? I'm not worthy. I have nothing to offer. The whole list, right? And it was one of those light bulb moments. Like, I never even thought about this. I never even worked through it. I was still so mad and angry
mhm,
and
mhm,
sad about this thing that I never even put thought to it. I just moved on and made sure my daughter was taken care of. And I
mm,
didn't even think about taking care of myself. Fast forward relationships after that. Anytime they wanted something from me, I was done. I can't
mm,
handle it. No, you want this from me? I'm not willing to give this to you. Why? Because you might abandon me. I don't have anything to offer. Go away. And it was just like one of those crazy light bulb things. It was like, we
If you
put stuff
if you don't,
away, compartmentalize stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, this is a huge, I don't want to say trauma, but a huge event in my life that
mhm.
I didn't even realize it was at the time. But it was, now I can put some words to it and how I feel, but I never thought about it. It's just kind of interesting when you were talking about, needs and needs for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, we have
If
to
you
be in
don't,
touch with that, or we are screwed, and we're gonna not be very. We just can't be in a relationship if we're not owning that.
yeah, if you don't give it away, if you
Mm,
don't give to
mm,
the
mm.
need, then it can never be taken away again,
Sure.
Yep,
right?
exactly. Yep.
You're not giving any attachment
Right.
to the relationship, so it can
Yep.
be removed from you. So if you consistently say no, you just block yourself off from
Right.
emotional connection,
Right. Well,
any
it's
connection.
yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
work a lot with metaphors. And there's a whole section of the book that's just utterly focused on that. This piece isn't in there, but I think a lot about sort of spatial metaphors. Right? And any spatial metaphor is always a matter of sort of openings and closings. And are these closings sort of rigid or flexible? Right. And, a fortress is the safest place you can be. You've got sort of rigid closings on every single side, which is great. You are safe. The problem is that I just described a prison. Like it works, right? Like,
No one can come in.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, good news. You are safe and very alone.
And
Yeah.
very alone. That's a great description of that.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
Robbie, have you lived in one of those before?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like I have too.
Yeah, that's really cool because how many men out there are living in that fortress because of whatever?
yeah.
I know a lot of females too, but how many men are living in that fortress right now? And men that are listening and you're thinking about, hey, I'm living in this fortress.
Mhm.
There's a way out.
Right.
It's not going to
Well,
be
it's
easy, but there is a way out.
what we want to do is we want to turn at least one of those walls flexible, right? I do want a space that I can close and lock in, but I need it to be a thing that somebody can also knock on and I can open it.
Yeah, good point. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to keep referencing again. I guess I'm excited about this book. I have an extended parable in there called "The Welcoming and the Walled and Welcoming City." And it's this whole parable about being a person who, like, we have boundaries and it's very important. Like, here's who I am, here's what I'm not. But things are going to keep coming in and we can't shut everything out. We have to have kind of like so in the parable, what I have is there's a welcoming committee, right? And the welcoming committee is saying, like, hey, you're a guest here. What kind of guest do you plan on being? Right? Like, if you came to criticize because you want to build this place up, like, cool. If your plan is to throw bombs, like, you're not welcome. We have to end up, right? Because the issue with the fortress is everyone's a danger if they're outside the fortress. And
Hmm.
this becomes more of a very sort of careful and sensitive screening system so that we can find who's safe. And maybe we have sort of outer layers. Maybe I invite somebody, I'm going to mix my metaphor here. I invite somebody onto the porch, but not into the house. Or they get to be in the living room, but not the bedroom, etc.
Different areas of welcoming, essentially. Different
Yeah, yeah.
areas
And
of
just different areas of
where
what I'm going to be vulnerable with. Right? We can't be utterly closed off. Being an open book is not necessarily a great idea either.
Yeah. I want to change this word need to want because I just thinking about what maybe children or adults want with their spouses or with their friendships, coworkers, and it's like I want my dad to love me, I want
Mm,
my spouse to love me.
mm.
Those a lot of times we want that as very a lot of vulnerability and courage. How do you teach people how to be able to use those and it's kind of like you were talking about with the porch, right? I got to let someone on the porch before I can let them in the house,
Uh-huh.
then into the bedroom, because it's very careful depending on what the situation is. But how do you use those words and those emotions and the courage, the vulnerability to express their want to someone else, just a human being?
I'm curious what the word change means to you. Why like go from need to want? What does that do for
Because
like what this means?
I know for myself, I don't say I need this. I want this. This is
I just have
something
it sort
that
of with the
I
communicating part of it.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. And I've been in other relationships and they say I want this, they don't say I need this.
I see.
So
Sure,
it's the same word, it's the same thing.
I got
But
you. It's just about how
I
do you
think for
communicate.
yes, how you communicate it. Like I think a
Got
lot
it.
of people say I want. I know with my daughter, she says I want this from you. She doesn't
Right,
say I
right,
need this from you.
right.
It may be just a play on words, but I think it
I'm
might
with
be a
you.
little
I see
important
what you
too.
were doing there. This is a matter of how do we then go to the person and say what we're looking for. acceptance that
Yeah.
itself is the vulnerable moment. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if this is like a weird angle, if this really answers your question. Telling somebody, so there are certain words in the English language that have so many meanings that they become almost not useful. Two of two of the biggest ones. So, and to be clear, just where I'm coming from with this, before I was a therapist, I was like a theology student. It's what my like first master's is in. I would say the two words that have too many meanings to be useful are God and love.
Mm.
Right. So if I tell
Yeah.
somebody that I want them to love me, the
There's
next
a
thing I kind of
whole
have to do, I really have to define what I, what I really mean there. And I think even there, right, what can be useful with that to break something down is also it just makes it an easier ask, right? So I might not say, "Hey, I need you to love me," but I might say, "Hey, like I had a hard day and I need to tell somebody about it." Right? Will you sort of hear me out? Right? Sort of if I kind of deconstruct what I think loving is into the variety of loving acts that I'm looking for, and then I'm able simply to
Mm.
ask about that. Or it's a smaller bite for the other person to take. And it's still, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'll notice sort of in my response, I didn't necessarily use the formula of I want X from you. And I guess I still had a certain like proclamation of need. Hey, there's this thing I need. Could you like help me with it? And even there, I guess what I'm doing is bringing this consent element into it, right? Because I can say what I need, but I really have to find out, are they available?
yeah,
And weirdly enough,
I think
what's up?
go ahead.
Weirdly enough, the consent part, I find power move is the wrong term, but it makes me think of it because if I just sort of show up with a need, I'm setting the other person up to either sort of be like steamrolled by it or feel like they have to fight to reject it. And so by bringing the consent element into it, I'm giving them this out, which often makes them feel more comfortable saying yes, right? Because there's no real yes if you can't say no. And then also, if they do say no, like because I've set them up for it, they know that them saying no is not a threat to the relationship. And I don't know, there's something about that. I don't know why, to me, makes it feel less vulnerable. I don't know why that is, uh, but it
I
does.
mean, I think we avoid vulnerability often
Mm,
because, like, if generally speaking, and I'll speak from my own personal experience, it's almost a passive way to try and get the need met without really expressing it,
Mhm.
mm-hmm,
right? And for example, I'm trying to come up with one off the top of my head, but no, I've got nothing. So when it comes to like that passive need, my fear of rejection.
mm,
So if
mm,
I drop something lightly
mm,
in
mm.
hopes that they'll hear me or hear the need or be able to interpret the need that I'm trying to express, then you kind of get screwed because generally speaking, your need won't get met unless they can read your mind.
Are you thinking that the way I said it was dropping it lightly? Because I was not going for that with
No,
how I was. Oh, okay,
no.
okay.
I wasn't
People will
saying
take
that.
the sort of
I'm just
incorrect way.
like,
Got it.
yeah,
I'm with you.
throwing another perspective at it. And then when you do,
Mm,
of the two options that when you were talking about when you like get
mm,
steamrolled by it
mm,
or essentially the opposite, there's the middle ground in there where the other person or you might feel obligated to meet it anyways because you don't want to upset the other person.
yep, exactly.
And I
Yep.
think that might go in with the steamrolling a little bit because then you have this nuance. And I think there's a lot of nuance when it comes to relationships because it all depends on where each other's level of vulnerability with each other and being comfortable with,
Mhm.
if you can say that thing that's on your mind and it's not offensive to the other person, even though it might come out that way,
Mm,
right? Like, and sometimes I'll do this because I don't have better language for it.
mm,
I'll preface it saying,
mhm,
I don't have any better words for this right now.
yeah,
But here's what it is that I'm thinking, or this is the need that I'm looking to have met, and
yeah,
it's gonna come out more
Messy.
raw
yep,
and messy than I mean for it to. And a lot of the times when I do that and I preface it, I still get the need out there, but I also open it up to a conversation. We also get to say, oh, okay, like here's that need. And if you're in like a healthy relationship, you can get some of that parroted back. Okay, I hear the need. You've said it. Yeah, it's messy. I'm not offended by it. But if that's a need that you want to have met, here's a way I would prefer to hear it. So you can communicate it in a way that still comes across as showing respect.
Yeah, I call it let's agree on semantics.
That's what it is. There's a lot of that.
It's, I sort of the way as well that I'll talk about that is to, if I go to somebody and I don't quite have the words, and I might say like, there's a thing that's on my mind, and I feel like all I have right now is the first draft of how I can say it. So like I'll say in the first draft, and like you push back so we can get there where I can say the thing that sort of feels right for both of us. This is the next book. Give me another decade on this one is just about communication relationships. And such a big part of what I'm trying to talk about in it is this navigation of language with one another. We all have these sensitivities around kind of like what the connotation is for us. If that makes sense. Right. And so I have to learn which words this person is going to not work for them because of how it was used in a past life. And I think we'll give each other space with that.
I have one of those, and I'm still currently working my way through it. And I call it ask telling. You're going to ask me a question like it's a request, but it's actually saying, this is what I want you to do.
Yeah. Oof.
Right. And so, it's an ask tell. So if you say no, you're screwed because it wasn't a question, but it was a question. So then this way, the other person who asks the question doesn't have to take responsibility because it's only a request when you come back and actually call it out. Right. But you have no option to say no. Right. So I'm trapped in my response.
I have like a very superficial version of it where I think because it was not that intense one, this was like an old girlfriend in college. We were in my dorm room and she said, "Hey, do you want to open the window?" Right. And I'm like, no, I wasn't interested. Like, I'm like, that's really not what you mean. And it's such a dumb one. Like, obviously I was giving her shit like in a friendly way, but it's the version I talk about in my chapter on tone in the book that doesn't exist yet of my father was driving around my grandmother. She asked, "Hey, does this car have air conditioning?" Right. What she meant was turn it on.
Yes.
And I think he said yes, just to sort of needle her. And she said, "Well, does it work?" It's like, just say the thing.
Right. And that's just say the thing, right? Like, don't make me guess your needs. And I think that's what it came down to, right? Like what needs to happen is you need to have the courage to express your needs, and I need to have the courage to express mine, and then we need to have the courage that if it doesn't work out in the middle, that we're going to have at least some respectful discourse between us to find the common ground.
Yeah.
And so I brought that one up because I think it's a fairly common one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's taken me a while to remove past context from that because I have past context to it that gets me lit up when it happens. And that is also my responsibility to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, because I'm the one who has the past context, and somebody else might say the exact same thing. And if I get all heated about it, I can express that, but I also need to own that it's something that I need to work on.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
absolutely.
I'm just listening, and like my question I tried to ask, I couldn't ask, right? But it was more about semantics. Like, here we are. We just went through it. And I guess what I was trying to convey is like when someone comes up to you and, you're like, your spouse comes up and I've had a horrible day. And you hear that. Then you either say, well, let me hear about it or whatever, your response. Then it could be negative as like, well, you don't ever care what I have my days about. But what she was really asking is, I just need to be held.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Then if it goes the other way, we could, do the other way. But I guess that was the question I was trying to ask was semantics, and you guys already answered it for me. So thank you.
Mm.
Because it gets lost a lot of times, because that's another thing where we don't know those words. And that's why I used want, because a lot of times it's want, but need works, I don't may play you for what I actually need.
Mm. That could be the
So,
feeling. Yeah. I mean, I
like,
think a gift we can give one another is making the sort of open offer, right? Somebody says, I had a bad day. I'll say, I'm here for you. What do you need? Right. And now
Mhm.
I've kind of given them that floor that should certainly both give them that permission and also takes out the guesswork from me. I don't need to guess what they're looking for. I say, I'm here. What do you need? Great.
well,
It's kind
now
of like
now I've learned that
reciprocating
though.
language or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, now I've learned that though.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, like, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know how to sit. I didn't know. It was like, oh,
For
really?
sure.
But now I know that, but it's like, I know a lot of men out there, like, they don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I was one of
yes.
them. And it led to
I
many
was
fights. It led to many fights. Because my mind would be like, what the hell does she want now?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time for this.
Mhm.
And I go right to anger or
I
frustration.
don't have time for the guessing game.
Yep.
I don't like here I go, I'm going to get it wrong again. There's a lot of that comes up that essentially just leads to the feeling of disappointment. Okay, I'll put effort into it again. Nope. Clearly got it wrong. I
Yeah.
tried, and that's
Yeah.
I think that's the part that ends up where
Resentment.
we start. Yeah, that's where you start losing, some respect, and you start gaining resentment. Because
Yeah.
when you lose respect, you gain something else, and normally it's a
Yeah.
negative emotion, resentment.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another person I'm working with right now. There's another person who thankfully like takes a lot of sort of shit I give him, who had that exact thing, right? That, I mean, for him, it was sort of that very classic one of his wife would tell, him about something that happened at work and he would just start trying to solve it, right? That's very sort of classic.
Because what
And,
men do.
and then she'd be like, I'm not looking for solutions. Like I want sympathy. And he was like, well, I'm not here for that. And that was it. And I was like, he's like, I'm helping the way I want to help. I'm like, that's not fucking like,
Yep. That
you
was me
know,
too.
uh, um, can I riff on that? Because there's a thing I love
Please.
sharing.
Go for it, dude. Please do.
So, and I'll cite my sources here. So, is it okay to reference other podcasts?
Yeah, go for it.
So there's a fantastic podcast I love called Philosophize This. And just a dude who I actually don't know his background, but he knows his stuff. So I have to assume he might be an academic. He doesn't bring that much in. And he has an episode on what's called the ethics of care. And his sort of philosopher for it is this crap. I almost want to say sociologist. I'm sorry that I don't have all my sources here. Woman's name is Joan Tronto. Tronto as if you took Toronto and took the first O out. And she has these sort of 5 elements of the ethics of care, and they sort of stack on each other. So there's just noticing there's a problem, right? Because I can't care if I don't realize there's an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have responsibility, and that doesn't mean it's my fault, but it's like, oh, I should do something. So those are great. Those are about as fundamental as you can get of somebody who's caring is doing those things. Then there's competence, right? And this is often where people already sort of start slipping because I can want to help and then help in a way that makes things worse. So like, what have I really done? I've cared, but I've cared very poorly. And then the part that I love the most is called responsiveness. And that's where the person you're trying to help tells you how you're doing. And this is the part where things really easily break down because the person who wants to be the helper, if they're given negative feedback, is like, well, fuck you then. Right. And that's the point where they've sort of failed to understand how caring works. Right. You are as much a helper as the person you're trying to help sees you as. And if you're not getting that part down, then your care is sort of limited. The 5th dimension is less personal. It's sort of social. And that's just about, can we create a society that's doing some of this caring instead of it falling on individuals? So when I'm working with clients, I'm really focused on the first four. But yeah, if I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Okay.
be, yeah, if I'm gonna be someone's emotional support, I have to be there for it, have some skills. But a lot of it really comes down to the responsiveness. I actually don't need as many skills if I can take feedback
No.
well,
Yeah. That's very
And there's a
interesting.
lot of emotional intelligence required to take feedback well.
Yeah. You said society. Can you go a little more into that? Because that sounds pretty interesting. Like society's help, responsiveness.
So,
What does that mean?
so
I kind of get the picture, but
I'll give you. So I have a good friend, also a therapist, who is blind, and she in some ways is the inspiration for kind of the rant I just went on. For a while, she had like sort of like a closed Facebook group that was called "I Was Just Trying to Help," and it's stories of people who, like in public, have kind of like treated her like a child because they're like the blind woman. Like
yeah.
I'm gonna like grab her hand and drag her across the street, right? And then when she says like, "Hey, I don't need this," they get mad at her, right?
Mm.
So
Yep.
if I'll sort of riff on that, and this comes up a
Mm-hmm.
lot in sort of like disability justice work, right? So let's say that there's this building and the only way to get in are stairs, right? So there's somebody with a wheelchair outside of it. So I could help by offering some way to help them maneuver those stairs. That's all well and good. The social form of caring would be if the building just fucking had ramps, right? A disability
Mm-hmm.
is just a reflection of match between environment and person, right? So if we have an environment that includes the people and understands their needs, that would be sort of social caring.
Got it. That makes total sense. Got it.
Yep.
So but all of this, right, keeps coming back to awareness of our own needs and this
Mm-hmm.
conscientiousness towards others. And the challenge, again, this is another guy I'm dealing with who, did not have a great upbringing and was not really taught about how to have any of his emotions. And what's especially hard is, I mean, it's so hard. He's getting there. He's making fantastic progress. But this notion of being in relationship, being that I am there for myself and for this other person. And that's so
Mm-hmm.
confusing that it always feels like it's a zero-sum game of either you win or I win, right? Only one of our needs get to be met.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you either create resentment that way or build it for yourself.
Yeah. It's a win lose. It's not a win for the partnership.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And he figured either he has to insist on himself or he has to sacrifice himself. And like,
It's very black and white.
right. Here's what's annoying. And again, I'll reference my chapter. I point out that the words both selfish and selfless are really not enough for what we need. Right? Because selfish just sounds bad and selfless is supposed to sound good, but utter
Mhm.
selflessness is just martyrdom. Like, the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
I
Right.
use the term self-inhabiting. Like, I'm at home in myself. Like, I get to take care of me. If you're with me, like, you have to be a good guest, but also I'm hosting. Like, I need to, right? A good host is taking care of his guests, but also keeping them from like, wrecking the place, right? Yeah, selfish and selfless is just an unhelpful binary.
That's an interesting concept,
Yes.
right? Because I mean, you certainly need to be selfish to take care of yourself,
Yeah,
right?
some of them.
I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong in taking care of yourself. You're going to eat well
Mhm,
and you're going to say
mhm,
no to other food.
mhm,
That
mhm.
is selfish. You're taking care of yourself. You're not being rude to the other person because you're saying no. You're just taking care of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right? And then vice versa. If you just
mhm,
said yes to everything, been there,
mhm.
done that,
Yep.
Yeah,
you have nothing left. It is essentially the opposite, the absolute opposite of living in that fortress.
yeah,
There are
yeah,
no walls, right?
yeah,
You end up being public property.
yeah. So
So,
if you have a space with absolutely no boundaries, if
yep.
it's good, we might call it like an ocean because we get to swim around and enjoy everything. If it's
hmm
bad, we just call it an abyss, right? If I
I
have
was
absolutely no boundaries, then I'm just falling, right? Then you're falling endlessly. There's nothing holding you in.
when you said the ocean, this is where my head went because it's funny. When you said the ocean, I was like, Okay, yeah, no boundaries, nothing. You're swimming in the ocean, and I'm like, yeah, and then whoever's just swimming around in there is pissing and shitting in it too.
Yep, yeah. No, we need we need containers.
Yes,
Um,
for the
yeah,
piss and the shit.
right. And again, like if our container is a fortress, though, then we will be quite low. And actually, then yeah, I was gonna play with the metaphor further, but I don't know how far I can go with.
Then you're swimming in your own piss and your
Yeah,
shit.
that's where I
That's
was.
where
Yeah,
you're going with it. That's
where I
I
wasn't
mean,
gonna
that's
say.
where I was gonna finish it because that's what I thought I heard.
Yep. So there's, I think I put this in there too. So there's sort of within the Jewish tradition, there's a rabbi who's like known for his like really good sayings 2,000 years ago, maybe a little less, Hillel. And he has sort of a famous thing. Is sort of three parts, and people have usually heard of some of it. People usually know the if not now, when part. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but that's him. He has these three questions. And it's, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? And that's really kind of what you were just talking about. Like, I need to be taking care of me. Who else will if I don't? And then the second half of it, though, is if I'm only for myself, then what am I? Right. And that to me is we have to master this selfish, selfless binary and not think that one of them is the wrong one. And there's that tension holding again. Right. I need to be for self and for other to be fully human.
Right.
That's a deep one.
Yeah, it is. I like that. I like it.
Yeah, no, I like this because it's a. Yeah, it's just I've never thought of it that way. Like I think of I just use boundaries. This is my boundary, but it's being selfishness. And then if I don't have that boundary, I'm dumping my cup out all over the ground and no one's filling it. So same difference. But I like your term better because it makes it one feeds the other. It's a habitat. Without either of them, you're not going to prosper. You're going to die. I don't mean that. You know what I mean? It's just that's the way.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool the way you worded that. I'm gonna keep that. I got to keep that one.
You're gonna create it. You're gonna turn it into a reel after is what you're gonna do. If you're not, I'm gonna. Anyway, let's finish this episode off with, we talked about gaining emotional intelligence. If you were to like turn that word into something that's easier to digest, that's like where men could say this is actually something that they need. Like if you were to come up to me back in the day and say like you just need a little bit more emotional intelligence, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
You telling me I'm dumb?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You saying I'm dumb? And like emotionally, yeah, you're gonna have to work on some things, right? Because I did not have the words for the things that I have the words for now.
Yeah.
I've made it a priority to learn them. But if you were to like simplify that term, I think that's the question I'm trying to hand over to you.
I don't know if this will cover all of it, but here's kind of where my head went. So you won't see this one coming. So in the Marvin Gaye song Sexual Healing, he has a line in which he says, we're all sensitive people. And I think there's somebody even about Marvin Gaye saying it where it's like, oh, okay, like we're ready to own it. And like to me, that's so much of it is, hey, we're all sensitive people. We have to work with that. We can't deny it. We can't deny it in ourselves. We can't deny it in others. That doesn't mean that all we become is like a bundle of raw nerves, right? Some of that means we have to protect ourselves. But yeah, we're all sensitive people. Let's learn how to do that well. I don't know. How's that?
No, it's actually pretty well said. We are. And the emotional intelligence part is like recognizing what that sensitivity is.
Honoring it. Honoring ourselves and others.
Yeah. So resources. Someone is listening to this podcast right now thinking, okay, clearly my relationship isn't very good with my spouse, partner, friends, whatever. I feel lonely. Even in that lonely feeling, learning how to express myself is going to be helpful to myself. It's going to benefit me and my outside world, both. It's a win-win when you learn that language. Resources for other men to figure that one out. Besides
my own?
I no,
certainly,
you're actually plug your book if
I'll
go
start
for
there, but there's other books. There's other, yeah. So, Seeing the Forest and the Trees, Mapping Your Inner World for Greater Clarity and Satisfaction in Life. It's wordy.
Mm-hmm.
The original title was just going to be You Don't Get to Be Simple. And my editor said that was far too hot. My editor said if people don't know you, they're going to find it to be a real turn. Like, people who know me love that title, and everyone else
Yeah,
is
I was
like,
gonna say
that's
that's a
just
great title.
hostile.
I love
Yeah,
that
thank you.
title.
Right. But it's hostile. So, certainly, I think there's a lot to be shared within my book. I do think, again, as like a good primer, I think Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication is great. There's another book I love a lot by a gentleman. His name is Buster Benson. It's called Why Are We Yelling? And what's sort of neat about it is when I picked it up, this was when I was first kind of preparing to do couples work. And I saw the title, I'm like, this is amazing. This is clearly a good book for couples. And about 2/3 the way through reading it, I found out that's not what it was. He wrote it after the 2016 election when he realized that he and the people around him were unable to have like pleasant, productive disagreements. But what's so
We need
nice
that book in society right now.
it's a lovely book. I need to like tell this guy like that I'm out here plugging his book so much. But like the first chapter or so, he just names it. He says, if we are getting if our conversations are turning heated, that's because it's hitting somewhere in us. And we need to like know what we need to like realize that and identify it and sort of own it, because otherwise we're just acting it out. So to me, just like the first couple chapters of Why Are We Yelling are fantastic. I'm trying to think of non-book resources. I'm pretty bookish.
No, and I think general book resources are probably the way to go if you're looking at just trying to learn some of this yourself. I know one of our previous guests, Sean Rawlinson, he's also a therapist who talks about emotional intelligence and has a workbook for it and deals with men and clients.
Yeah.
That's a shameless plug for him. Needless to say, that would be like a non-bookish type thing. I think he's been on a couple podcasts, and it's one of the things that he's big on is emotional intelligence. That being said, Robbie, what book helped you?
Oh, I had it in my head earlier. Brene Brown.
Mm-hmm.
You have to help me out, Steve, because I lost.
Atlas of the Heart.
Atlas of the Heart. I was thinking about that book way earlier, but yeah, Atlas of the Heart.
Yeah,
Brene
I was
Brown.
thinking about that book too. So
Life
this
changer
was
for me.
a book. Yeah, it was a life changer for me too. She writes down. She really does an excellent job of going through 87 different emotions and explaining.
I've heard of her. I haven't heard of this book. Holy crap. Thank you.
Atlas of the Heart.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
super simple. It's an easy read. This is how I found the language for a lot of how I feel. She expresses it well. She brings some real life into it as well. But what I've done with it essentially is when you go through the book and read the emotion, a lot of the times I've found an event in my life where I felt that emotion. I never had words for it, but I would sit down and I'd be like, okay, where did I feel this? She has like an example here, and then if I can personalize that emotion with something, then when I'm walking through the world, I can access it again because I've turned it into something that I've experienced, and I've done that with all 87 of them, and it has helped me find my language for how I feel. It's given me a boatload of confidence as well, like how I can. I mean, it's taken a lot of, and a lot of practice. You don't just get it right away, but that's the book that is in. I'll hand that book to anyone because it has changed my life.
That's very neat.
And
Thank you. I wrote it down.
Yeah, something Steve and I've talked about quite often too is a lot of times we thought it was this emotion and we didn't know the right name for that emotion. So we said, I'm just going to use an easy one like, jealousy and envy. I would use jealousy. Well, I was envious of this person. I wasn't jealous of them, but I used that wrong my whole life until I read that book. And I'm like, and it's like some of those emotions there, you're just like, I've been using this wrong. Then once you
Mhm.
fill out you've been using it, find out you've been using it wrong, you're like, this is what it means. Then for me, it makes a lot more sense of how I feel and what I felt during that event or any of that time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
because absolutely. But
so
go ahead.
in divinity school, I had a Buddhism professor who taught me the deep wisdom of the song "If You're Happy and You Know It." Right, that if you have an inner state and you are able to like know it, you then have the capacity to take action on it. Right, you can only clap your
Clap your
hands if you're
hands,
happy and you know it.
and you know it.
Yep.
I love that. I love that. That's a perfect way to just finish this podcast.
Right.
Thank you so much, Matthew,
Sure.
for taking the time. I know it's late over there where you are, and it's getting close to bedtime, but I really appreciate you hanging on and showing up and sharing your stories, your knowledge,
Yeah.
everything that you brought to the podcast today. I really appreciate you being here, and thank you so much, man. It
Cool.
was
Thank
great
you.
having you on, and I would love to have you on again sometime in the future because this was just really fun.
Awesome. Yeah, love it. You all are great. It's a cool thing you're doing for people out there. So I appreciate it. I'd be happy to be part of it.
Really cool. All right. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye.